think a lot of people don't realize that just because they're your family doesn't mean that they can't give up on you. It can happen. Not be present enough for something, and all of a sudden, 20 years later, you come to knock at a door and nobody will answer. The people that are more consistent, literally and figuratively, outlive the ones that don't. Doing the same boring thing every day, regardless of the outcome, is going to give you a result. Podcasting is an editor's medium, just like movies are. I think the approach of having a storyteller versus somebody who has a larger profile is the way to go. A face might get you that initial click, but will anybody listen?
What is high performance in family dynamics?
A high performance in family dynamics.
Marwan Mohamed is the production manager and partner at Podster and the host of Nothing Final podcast. In this episode, we spoke about high performance in family dynamics. We also discussed about the idea behind his podcast episode, What If You Finish What You Started? And we also spoke about the poison tree in our lives. Because of Marwan's ability to make us reflect on what matters, I highly recommend to not miss out on this one. Alright, before we kick off with today's episode, if you can pause and subscribe to this channel, that is if you haven't already. It just takes a second, but it'll truly help me to bring you more and more high performance to this show. This is the High Performance Mindset, and today's guest is Marwan Mohamed. Enjoy this episode. You know how nowadays they're always pushing the narrative on social media of how fast you can become successful, how you should be focused, how you should cut everyone out who's not serving your vision, how you should learn how to say no. I believe those are the ways to become successful at any craft, but the part that they don't mention is you should not neglect your duties while you're on this journey as a son, your duties as a grandson, your duties as a brother, your duties as a uncle, your duties as a nephew. And I mean, you pointed out this part, and it made me think that what should be portrayed is that the successful man, or the measures for who is a successful man, is the one who's mostly there for his family. And having said that, from your perspective, what is high performance in family dynamics?
Ooh. A high performance in family dynamics. I would say really the only metric that I've found is not just being there, but being present.
What's the difference?
Being there physically is something that everybody can do. You don't need to dedicate any portion of your consciousness to be there. You know, you can just sit there and be on your phone, whether for work or scrolling through TikTok. And I didn't realize this for years, that you could be physically present for a family moment or a family occasion and not remember anything about it later. Wow. Being present, on the other hand, is actually dedicating a portion of your consciousness. I would say that if you're not exhausted by the end of a family gathering, you didn't do it right. Like it's, you've got to give them the time of day.
I mean, also, that's the same thing like being there physically while you're sitting on the couch. I mean, like if no one actually needs you around the house, then as a man, I believe you should be out there hunting, out there trying to provide, like.
And I believe in that as well. I think that you know, the portions of the internet that encourage men to be out there and hustle, they have some of it right. As much as we try to ignore in our modern day our role as providers or our role as you know, being a source of strength for your family in the effort of being a little bit more equal or a little bit more emotional, there is truth to it in the sense where there are things that are out there in the world that really only you can do. But I also want to push in the other direction a little bit, where your family might not express the need that they need you out of not wanting to interfere with your role as their provider. So it's up to you to develop that kind of emotional intelligence to figure out that Yeah, they said I shouldn't come to this school event, but I know what they really want.
Right.
And you have to make that call. It's an uncomfortable call to make. I often feel at odds that I could either be successful at work or I can be successful with my family. And almost every moment is an A or B decision. Sometimes I make decision A, sometimes I make decision B. But I think I've acknowledged within myself, and I think people should do this as well, is that there is no doing both. You have to make a decision on every certain moment which one you want to do.
And yeah, I mean, that should be your sort of matrix of getting, attending to my values. Because if you're saying you're constantly working for your family, but and then where it matters or in these special moments, you're not there, I mean, I don't think anyone can be there all the time. And if they're there all the time in all these moments, then what time are they, working to provide? But then again, that it is worth it to make the sacrifice to pause and be there, because if you completely neglect it, then that relationship will die. It's like any plant, you have to water it.
No, I have to agree. I think a lot of people don't realize that just because they're your family doesn't mean that they can't give up on you. It can happen. Miss one too many of these occasions, not be present enough for something, and all of a sudden, 20 years later, you come to knock at a door and nobody will answer.
I see it happening a lot with fathers and sons. And sometimes the son is open, to rebuild the relationship. And sometimes they're not, And I am not to decide for them what is right or wrong. I do believe it's always better to find the strength in you to, reconcile and try and build whatever connection you can again with your father. What do you feel gets in the way of building family relationships if, for whatever reason, went wrong?
I think ego is the big thing. And I don't want to say a lack of empathy, but sometimes you just got to forgive what you can't forget. If you are in a moment where you find yourself that there's an opportunity for you to rekindle something that was lost, especially with your father. We talked about this at length not too long ago. Push within yourself to take that opportunity, because that opportunity won't always be there. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm guilty of this myself. To kind of, my father was never difficult. My father was, never a bad person to me or our family. But because of the nature of his work and why he needed to provide for us, like, the world was pretty cutthroat. He came here with nothing to his name in the 90s, and he needed to provide. So by nature of it, he wasn't always present. And I didn't necessarily resent that. I didn't even feel anything towards it until I kind of grew up and I realized that we don't really have a relationship. And for a long time, I was fine with that because, I look around me and not a lot of guys have relationships with their dads, especially from, like our generation. Like it was just never there because the dads were never really educated or aware in that sense that they needed to do something. In their mind, they were fulfilling the role that they always have, so they were successful, right? But then when it came down to us, and now I realized that something was missing, I chose to do nothing about it until a near-death experience came. And then all of a sudden I realized that I needed to drop everything. I needed to rekindle that at any price because I didn't want to just lose on that forever, because there was a chance that I was never going to get that opportunity, and in a sense I would fail. So I decided to overcome this silly barrier that I'd set within myself and and start working on it slowly. And it's improving. It's definitely improving. I don't think he realizes that I'm even trying to do that. He's happy when I call him and I don't need anything from him. But I don't think he's connected the dots. And if he has, he's done a very good job of hiding it. Maybe he's hiding it because he doesn't want me to stop, or he likes that it's happening and he just doesn't want me to be aware of it. Or he just isn't aware of it at all. He's like, oh, hey, my son's calling. And, and he just answers the phone.
I don't know. I find myself, I struggle in expressing my appreciation for those I love. So probably we're similar in that sense. But one thing is for sure is that he's definitely happy every single time that his son calls him and he sees your name ringing. Like, it starts there, before even answering.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, with my dad, he never had his dad because his dad passed away when he was 5 or 7. So you'll see him with every child. He was a different version, right? Yeah. And he kept changing, and that tells me that he was always trying to improve, yet not having a clear example to follow. Not from media, not from himself having a father example in his life. So when it got to me, he retired when I was like, I don't know, 13 or 14. And all of a sudden, he's got time in his hands, and I think he realized that, wait a minute, I've been working all these decades, and I just realized that I don't know much about my son. And I was the only, you could say, available son for him to work on. Like, most of my brothers were abroad. My younger brother was just born. So I remember we'd go, let's say, swimming, and just silence. And I have nothing to say. And I can see he's trying to, create this conversation. And it was awkward for me. Yeah. Sometimes you just want this swimming session to end, and get back to playing my video games or... Yeah. But I got to give it to him. He was resilient and persistent in making that grow. And by the age of maybe, 20 years old, I could call him my best friend. So it took him, imagine, that long. And I actually didn't have any bad, serious encounters. Like, it's not like I had something against it. And imagine it took me that long for him to achieve that. So it's not an easy thing. And sometimes we can be the biggest barrier in the way. But, I think it's important that we never lose hope and just keep trying. Because if you could keep trying for that long, and I was like, God knows, if I have so much attitude right now, God knows how I was when I was a teenager.
Yeah, no. Nobody actually talks about this that much, but even when in conversations with friends, who are trying to rekindle the relationships with their dads, it's like you'll come to this phase where it's just like, okay, I'm trying here, but like I don't know this man at all. like for all intents and purposes, this is just a strange old guy that I'm just meeting, and like we don't like the same music, we don't like the same activities, we don't have the same interests, we share nothing other than some names and that's it. But that's where the effort is going to fall on you, who I want to say in a lot of cases the more emotionally intelligent party, is that exercise that empathy and start to get interested in something that they're interested in. Build that common ground. Because the feeling will stay of like there's that awkwardness, but there's a feeling that will persist after, which is the feeling of comfort, the feeling of love, right? an uncomfortable silence can become a comfortable silence once you've expressed love to each other enough, right? And it's not going to be through gestures. Like, I think I've thanked my dad for a time spent together once. Like, I really felt it, and I wrote this very long message because I know I couldn't say it on the phone. I would feel awkward, or maybe I would cry. I don't even know which one would come first. But I wrote him this very long message, and he sent me like a prayer emoji at the end. And I was like, I know it was received, and I know that he can't do anything in return because he doesn't understand what I'm trying to do. But I felt extremely comfortable knowing that he knew that I was grateful.
Okay.
And that was it for me. And that was fine. I'm not expecting any more of him because it's unfair of me to expect any more of him. He worked so hard so that I would have the ability to sit down and think about how I felt. The man didn't have time to sit down and think about how he felt. Like, I imagine your father, rest in peace, he's probably had the same situation where it's just like, in all these decades of work, when did he have the time to even sit down? The one day off they got a week, they would sleep because they would catch up on all the sleep because of all the commuting, and that was it. You know? It's on you.
Yeah. I'm very proud of you with how you give priority to being present to your family, and you take action. That's the most important.
It's not perfect, but every day I'm trying to do it. It's not nearly where I wanted it to be, but it's better than what it was.
And I think it's important for us to I guess that's where the empathy comes, is to understand that we have different ways of saying thank you, I appreciate it, and we shouldn't get fixated with this is how I would say thank you, or, probably I would have wrote a longer letter back.
Yeah.
No,
I'm perfectly satisfied with him funding my education. Every diluted career shift, supporting me until now. If that's his way of saying thank you, you're welcome. That's it.
And knowing that your dad is behind you no matter what, that's something not everybody has that.
No,
not everybody has that. All right. I wanted to ask you about this. You've been working in the podcast studio, Podster, and now you have your podcast. I want to ask you, how did you look at podcasting and podcasters before versus now? You've came through a lot. You've seen a lot more than, a podcaster would, because they're probably busy just filming their own podcast, but they're not there watching others at work.
I've sat in no less than 7,000 hours of podcasts. Wow. Over the last 4 years. Actually, when you divide that number on a day-to-day basis, it's really not that much. But listen, I have a lot of respect for you guys now than what I did initially. Because for years, I was like, why can't you do the thing that I'm telling you to do? You would be so much better off if you did what I told you to do. You're just ignoring my advice. You're ignoring everything that I know. And then I started doing it myself. I was like, oh, it is really hard to keep a publishing schedule. Oh my God. It takes so much effort to write. Oh my God. My guest canceled on me for the 4th time. It was a complete shift of what it feels like to be behind the camera and what it feels like to be in front of it. There's a lot more at risk in front of the camera, for sure. There's a lot of responsibility behind the camera, but there's a lot of risk in front of the camera. And that risk was something that I was not aware of. Because it's very easy to coach somebody on something, even if you know how it's done. It is much harder to do it yourself. And it gave me a lot of humility. Actually, I've, based on on this particular experience of creating content, I've been pushing every person in our staff to create content themselves. just because I want them to struggle.
To
I want them to have
an idea.
Yeah, I want them to have an idea of what it's like to have bad audio. I want them to have an idea of what it's like to have a guest cancel. I want them to have a feeling of what it's like to record content that you don't care about because you think it'll get you views. I want them to have the heartbreak of recording content that you actually care about and have nobody listen, right? I want them to experience these heartbreaks because as much as we love and care for the people that come in, it is very different to sympathize and to empathize. Having sympathy is not enough. You need to have empathy, and empathy comes from shared experience.
Well said. Do you feel there are certain things that certain podcasters did right and which allowed them to become successful podcasters? I'm sure you've seen a couple of examples.
Yeah. I mean, really the biggest thing that I would say is over a long enough period of time, it was consistency. First of all, we have to talk about what success is, right? Some people's success is certain KPIs that relate to views, for example.
Right.
It's an acceptable form of success. And if you have that as your North Star, that's perfectly acceptable. But when you start looking at maybe something that is a little bit less tangible, but still measurable, right? Comments, impact that you have on people. You need to sort of discern the kind of impact that you want to have, and based on that comes the best trait. And I think overall, the people that are more consistent, literally and figuratively, outlive the ones that don't. Because, listen, it's like maybe I'm the worst person to make this comparison, but you can compare it to exercise and working out, right? Not every day are you going to hit a personal record. Not every day you're going to have your best run. Not every day, like in my case, it's often very difficult to make these decisions because I'm not seeing the immediate return.
Right.
Like I spent all these years accumulating body fat and I did 2 runs. Why am I not, ripped yet? But the reality here is consistency is the answer that I'm looking for, and consistency is the answer that everybody needs to have. Is that doing the same boring thing every day, regardless of the outcome, because you have that North Star set correctly, is going to give you result.
I heard something recently. I think it was Sheikh Hamza Yusuf with Mo Islam, the Mo Show. And Sheikh Hamza Yusuf was talking about this musician who I think is a guitarist, and he met him in person, and that musician told Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, what does practice make? And he said, practice makes perfect. He's like, not correct. He said, correct practice makes perfect. And basically, if you're constantly repeating the wrong thing, right, and you're not seeing improvement, maybe you should start adapting and change. And it's easier said than done. It's probably the most exhausting thing, but that's the differentiator. You have one who's not consistent at all. That you can forget about that category because any idea undone, you can keep it for yourself. The world doesn't need that. But you have the one who managed to sum up this, energy and mindset to show up consistently. And then there's a category even better than that don't get tired out of stressing on the little things. And for most people, they'll think, oh, the little things, why are you stressing on these little things? But no, every 1% counts. And then over the long term, the compound effect kicks in and you see leaps of progress. So I think at the beginning, when you start a podcast, you have a lot on your mind and you don't know what is working and what's not. And from my personal experience, I wasn't open to listen, especially from people who who don't have a podcast, or their podcast is small,
Yeah.
right? No, I would definitely give priority to, and open to listen to podcasters who are way ahead of me, and I would listen, religiously to what they say. But so I think it's very important to listen to the right people, and the right people are just people who did what you want to do, but did it the right way. That's from one perspective. Another perspective, what you said, like, yes, right now people are getting some clips to go viral. It all depends what's your long-term game. If you're building a brand, and you want it to be a trusted brand, then I think as much as the views matter, but also the quality of the content. And maybe quality is not as popular, but it's on you to make it commercial. It's like you have a song that is really good, but it's underground, right? And there's a very small niche who would listen to it. And then you see a song which is really good and it's commercial, and it, explodes all over the world, and everybody's listening to it. Now it's up to you, why you doing it. If you just want to get some claps in the niche market, okay. But if your vision is to, be one of the top guys, then you're going to have to find a way to get quality and make it something that everyone can listen to.
Pusha T, musician, he said, "Are you a content creator or are you creating content?" And I think that dichotomy in that statement is one of the best things anybody could have said about this whole space. Are you creating content or are you a content creator? One of them is way worse than the other.
How do you see it?
I see that anybody has the ability to be a content creator. Not everybody is in the position to create content. And I think we should all be content creators, but we should all strive to create content. Play that back 2 or 3 more times. I think the point will sink in. But having something to say is just as important as having the means to say it. And you see this a lot in Arabic content, where we are having a conscious shift towards more meaningful content. And I'd like to think that podcasting is pioneering that movement. And we're going to start seeing the compounding effects of it now, because a lot of the stuff that's being created here in Arabic or English by Arabic creators, such as this, because I like to think that you're one of the ones that are here to create content.
That's
right?
what we strive for.
Yeah, that's what we should always strive for. And I think that's going to show itself later. But it's really, the question here is just about weathering the storm. It's surviving all the uncertainty, all the things that you had pointed out. Because I think that showing up incorrectly is still important. Because through showing up consistently incorrectly, you might one day find the eureka moment and find a way to show up correctly. But if you don't show up at all, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, and also I feel sometimes, like you said, you're working, you're not seeing the rewards immediately, you're tired, and you want to just, let one slide.
Yeah.
But, and that's a battle where sometimes, I could interview a person which doesn't really fit, the brand values, or at least my values. But I know if I interview this guest, the person has so many views, I'll benefit from the exposure. And then I stick to my inner compass and choose to not sell out, and I believe that if I'm consistently, dropping worthy content, regardless of the views or the followers of the guest, that in the long run, it will build a stronger following in terms of loyalty to the brand.
Podcasting is an editor's medium, just like movies are. And the one thing that successful and good, valuable movies prioritize is story. I think the approach of having a storyteller versus somebody who has a larger profile is the way to go. Might not yield immediate results and it will take a lot longer, but hey, you can craft a killer trailer out of somebody who can tell a good story rather than just somebody who's a face.
True.
A face might get you that initial click, but will anybody listen? It's not guaranteed. But a storyteller is where you want to be. Now, there are these moments where you could actually kind of marry the two and find somebody who is aligned with the brand and can also help, expose your brand to other like-minded people. But that's really, it's rare. It's not very common. But I would prioritize the storyteller over the face for sure.
That's true. I mean, most of the listeners probably won't be on that level of still being patient enough to try and grasp what is being said. I mean, you're competing with God knows how many other, content creators. So the one with the best storytelling is the one who will, the algorithm will support. Yeah. Let's get to your podcast. Nothing final. Fatal mistake. What if you finish what you started? Where did that come from?
Oh, yeah. It didn't come from an easy place, but it came from a good hard look at my life and looking around the childhood bedroom that I still kind of occupy and seeing the guitar that I never got to fully learn, the piano I never mastered, the book I never finished, the TV show I never wrote. And then I looked around and I started to see that there's all these other people I could have become. Oh, also I forgot the degree I never got to use. Seeing all of that hung around me, it was, listen, it was always there, but it just hit me 1 second. And this whole podcast came from that, where what if you finish what you started? I struggled to choose a path. I struggled a lot with consistency. I struggled a lot with effort, mind you, on things that relate only to myself. I have no issue showing up for other people and doing things that other people need me to do. But when it comes to myself, unfortunately, I have little respect for myself and who I am. Otherwise, I would have finished what I started.
You mentioned that how we romanticize the idea of starting a new project and, I'll start doing this hobby or working on this project while forgetting all the shame that came from the unfinished projects, and how we should create a barrier between our idea and ourself. Please explain to me why we should do that.
We talked a little bit about ego before, but what I feel like is the truth, the actual core of the situations that we find ourselves in. The reason why we dream is because we're unsatisfied with who we are. Plain and simple, right? If we can agree on that, my lack of satisfaction with who I am right now leads me to dream to become somebody else, right? There is a personal connection there already where I am dreaming about becoming somebody else. But the reality that we need to acknowledge is you can be a person that's independent and exists and create projects or have certain things that don't necessarily reflect on you as a person. My breakthrough moment was when I saw the unfinished script, when I saw that unplayed guitar with dust on it, is that I started to have a little bit of empathy for myself and understanding of why these things never materialized, and then giving myself the grace to go, this is not who I am, or I'm not hoping to become that in my entirety. I am a whole other person with many other I am a whole other person with many other facets. This one thing that I've hung my hopes on does not contain my entirety, right? I contain so much more. So you strip the ego part of activity, right? You strip the ego part of legacy, and it just becomes something else that you do. And when you create that separation is when you can start to have some kind of respect for yourself. That's really the only way that I found out of this issue.
If you start something for the wrong reasons, it's just a matter of time before you quit. And if you start it for the right reason, doesn't guarantee you're going to be consistent or any of that.
Yeah.
But you're giving yourself a better shot at being someone who finishes what they started. The research shows it, and all the extremely high performers are very connected with their why. It's clear why they're doing what they're doing, and it's clear why it's important for them. And that's a layer where a lot of people neglect and don't want to do the homework of, removing the layers of what do I want and why do I want it. And everybody can have, different motives. But you being clear on what you want and being clear on your motive behind it. And the more you're clear with that and the more you remind yourself, it'll make it easier for you to keep showing up with the required energy for it.
Yeah. I mean, I would say to echo that point further, I mean, it feels like we're just agreeing on a lot of things, but I do personally agree. And I think that if you take a deep, hard look at yourself and you say, am I writing that script because I want to become a writer that everybody hails as a genius? Or am I writing that script because that story needs to be told? Path B is usually the path where you would find success, 99% of the time. Even if it doesn't end up where you want it to be, you've told that story and you've expressed it and it's done, right? But if you're doing it because you want everybody to hail you as a genius, you're going to be upset when it doesn't happen, and it probably won't. Like the odds are really stacked against you. But if you're doing it to just express or tell that story, the odds of you succeeding are much higher.
Yeah, it would make it easier for you to show up. It will reduce the outer expectations that you have. It will make it more intrinsic motivation versus, I'm waiting for other people to clap for me or to see me as a great writer. But if I'm doing it because I want to make a positive impact, I'm doing it, let's say, for my creator to be pleased with me. These motives, are all very intrinsic because no one can see this. No one can see if I'm doing what I'm doing for God or I'm doing it to get more likes and shares. People can say what they want, but how they show up consistently speaks a lot louder. I want to transition to your episode. Is called "Your Life is a Garden, but there's a tree that's killing it." What do you mean by that?
So this metaphor actually came to me from a song that I was listening to quite a lot. The song is called Poison Tree. So it's not extremely original, but the song is very atmospheric and it droned on with me for months. I would travel to Saudi for work and I would just walk around at night listening to that song in Riyadh, and I remember I put no less than 40 hours on that song alone. The song is 2 minutes. And it just sat with me and it marinated with me. And what I started to see what this object is that there could be something that exists in your life that takes away from everything else unfairly, right? A tree in a flower garden will actually cause the flowers to die because it sucks up all the nutrients from the soil, and the flowers are left with nothing. If you would imagine that that tree itself is poison, it's no longer taking from around you and is satisfied with that. It is actually ruining the soil for everything else that's going to come after as well. So if you see this metaphor as more of a literary exercise and you start to kind of imagine parts of your life where I have this pasture is myself, all these flowers are my connections, my friendships, my relationships, my work, and then there is something in the middle there that's only alive at the expense of everything else. What could that thing be? And I don't want to generalize too much, but I think that we can all find something in our lives that's not only taking more than its fair share, but is also ruining the chances for everything else. And for myself, it was a lack of discipline.
And you mentioned that a dear person to you told you that you're more passive. That's sort of the poison tree in your garden. But you answered by saying that it's your lack of discipline is the poison tree. Are those two different poisons, or is it the same? How do you see it?
No, to be honest, I think that I wouldn't say they're one and the same. But I think that the reason why I presented both ideas was because I wanted there to be room for you to allow other people to examine you as well. Because what you might think is your problem might not be your problem. Mostly because, you're on the inside looking out. It'll give you some insight, but you might be missing something because of bias. You might be missing something because you just don't have the perspective. But if you were to be on the outside looking in, what would that perspective be like?
Interesting.
And I think marrying these two ideas can maybe give you the closest semblance of truth. Yeah, I think it's important to allow people that you care about and people that you trust their opinion to also assess certain portions of your life to try and see what it would be like from their point of view. And they could just be wrong, but what they say about you is often interesting because it'll give you an idea of what they think of you as well.
I mean, I just remembered my dad told me this once: if two people tell you the same thing, then think about it.
Yeah. What would you say your poison tree is?
I would say it's the same. I think discipline is that major, part that is holding everything together. And without it, nothing will see its fruition. And you threw this question: is discipline inherited? Is it nurture versus nature? And then you decided that it has to be learned. Why?
Because even if the alternative is true, I don't want to live in that world.
And what's the alternative?
The alternative is you're born with it, and people who don't have it have no hope of acquiring it. And if we acknowledge that as reality, then we should all just end it, right? So even if that were to be the truth, I'm choosing to believe the other one because that gives me a chance. That gives everybody around me a chance. And a part of me believes it more than the other one because I've seen people turn their lives around with discipline. I've seen people overcome very difficult things with discipline. But again, like we said earlier, it was the right motivation as well. So it's like discipline and motivation. I think you can have discipline without the right motivation, and then maybe you end up in some weird places. Better places if you hadn't tried, but you would still end up somewhere uncomfortable. But yeah, my choice is clear, and I think, and I'd like everybody else to believe the same. I want to change everybody's belief system into thinking there is a chance, there is hope. You can learn how to be disciplined, and we can all try.
Yeah, and you did mention that if, let's say, discipline is something inherited, then those who didn't inherit are meant to just be losers and achieve nothing in life. You know, if that were to be true, that means no dream ever deserves to pursue, because hey, did not come out of the pool of inherited large portion of discipline.
If discipline is inherited, then we might as well sign the death warrant on every dream we ever have, because if it's either you have it or you don't, it's done.
How can we learn discipline?
Oh my God.
That's the $1 million question.
The $1 million question, and the wrong person to ask it to.
No, you're not.
I have a theory. I mean, the unglamorous act of just doing it again and again, without seeing success, without having success, without expecting success, to just decide that this is something that I want to do and to keep doing it. Nothing more to it, no other way to say it.
What gets a person in that mental space?
I mean, other than the right motivation, I think that a certain degree of self-loathing will get you to start there first. But not self-loathing in the sense where I hate myself and I want to change it. Self-loathing in, I've not had as much respect for myself as I wish I had. I can see that I do not respect myself. I see that I do not love myself. And I loathe that. And then in the sense, making the decision that's on the opposite end, where you decide that every time you show up for yourself in private is self-respect. I think that that type of self-loathing is the type of self-loathing that we should all have, in the sense where you loathe yourself for not loving yourself, rather than loathing yourself because you hate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that that's it.
And I believe that's the ultimate respect for yourself comes from showing up to what deeply matters to you.
A lack of self-discipline is a lack of self-respect. Discipline is respect.
Ow, Marwan.
No, that's it, and I'm guilty of it too. Mm-hmm. I respect other people way more than I respect myself, and that's a matter of fact. It's who I am personally. It's who I am at work. It's who I am in my relationships, and I am aware of it. I've not made my peace with it because I don't think it's something that anybody should succumb to.
Right.
But it is something that I'm aware of, where if I did respect myself more, I would finish what I started. Right?
Absolutely. One thing I admire about you is I've seen the energy with your team, right? I've recorded in different studios with different members of your team, and I come and I feel the energy. And I know from working in so many companies and different industries, the manager plays a big role in the environment and the energy that's in the team. If he's acting in an anxious way, then that energy transcends to the rest of the team. And if he can operate in a more calm and decisive way, then it allows the rest of the team to operate in a similar manner. From your perspective, how do you balance between kindness or empathy and authority?
Through expectation. So maybe I've had this a similar-ish team for a while now. I had gone through a period where my team would be shifting constantly, but over a long enough period of time, what becomes clear is the only thing that you can really want from your team is to live up to the expectation that you set for them. And the expectation that you set for them here, of course, has to be realistic in a lot of senses, but you also have to be comfortable with you pushing a little bit of a boundary of expecting a little bit more of them, giving them acceptance and appreciation when they live up or exceed your expectation, but also giving them grace when they don't, and letting them know that, hey, I'm aware that that expectation was not lived up to, but at the same time, I understand why it might have happened. I can see that you tried, and that's what's important. Let's do it again. I think obviously, like many other people in my position, I could probably have a little bit more patience, but I could also have a lot more result, because it goes both ways, right? I manage, but I am also being managed. There's somebody that I answer to. There's somebody that I respect, and there's somebody that I want to live up to their expectation. And it's very often a mutual relationship that goes both ways. When below is good, up is good. When below is bad, up is bad. And you have to kind of balance yourself in that position.
Who are the examples that you look up to? Who comes to mind?
I mean, it might be a bit boring, but I think I got very lucky with my current boss and with my ex-boss as well, who introduced me to my current boss, actually. But on the day-to-day, I would always find myself in the position where, what would he do? Vuk, what would he say? How would he act? And I try to find the best course of action and kind of find myself in that, because I know that his style is what made me who I am today, and I'm very grateful for that. He always had extremely clear expectations of what he wanted me to do or what he wanted me to achieve, but he also had a significant bit of grace and understanding. And those are the two kinds of things that are very hard to marry, where you expect somebody to do a certain thing, and when that certain thing is not done or incomplete, is to kind of be able to sit down with them and dissect why it might have happened or how it might have happened, and then just allowing that to kind of sit with you.
Yeah, and of course, everybody will apply the things they've learned. They'll try and execute it their own way, and start to, through trial and error, they'll find what works and sits well with them, and what is not.
I think I found a lot of better paths, but I also feel like I've come into situations where the worst outcome possible manifested, right? And it's not always that you can go back and, look for a mentor, but there are positions where I find myself now where I'm like, I'm lucky to have a mentor, because I can look around and see other people my age, and not everybody has that kind of leadership into who you're being molded into or who you're allowed to become. This could translate from fathers all the way up to, mentors at work. Like, the cure to the male loneliness epidemic, in my opinion, is the presence of a strong mentor. A strong male presence in your life or a strong, empathetic male community around you, is what a person needs, really, when it comes to becoming or growing up. And by the nature of it, we don't really have a lot of that, but feels like there's a positive shift, and we should all welcome it.
I want to reverse time a little bit, and I want to talk about when you came top was it in uni, when you came top of the international board exams?
No, this was school.
This was school.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you used to not
Never.
come one of the top during the mock exams or the other exams.
Never.
So how did that happen? Obviously, I don't believe in flukes. So
No. And I really don't think it was. I think this is one of those rare moments in life where I really applied myself. And I was really happy to see that result. And it was one of those things where it felt like I earned it. Sometimes you get lucky and you go like, oh, like maybe I don't deserve this. Maybe I didn't work hard enough for it. But then when that came, when I got that phone call from the supervisor, and I was like, you're damn right I did. Like, if I hadn't, I would like, I might as well not do anything else in life if that hadn't worked out. No, I'd put in a significant amount more effort than everybody around me.
can you tell me your thought process before and during? What made you shift gears?
I think that took me into...
Because if you told me you were already getting those, and then getting those grades, and then yes, I also got, the international board exams, coming out top in that. All right, but that wasn't the case.
No, I would say the gear shift moment, I would maybe bring it down to two instances where I could see that that's what my parents wanted from me. All that they were hoping for really was this one thing. And that I looked around me and I saw they're not better in any way. Why should they be better here?
You mean your colleagues?
Exactly. It wasn't really healthy competition in the sense where I wanted to compete with them and I wanted to see the result and, oh, who did better? No, with all due respect, I wanted to lap them. I wanted to do better. And I just wanted to prove to myself that I can.
What were the challenges you faced and how did you push through them?
The challenges I faced were, I mean, this also translates very well in uni because it was the same. The first challenge was you get isolated. So when people start to see, because it's very easy for people to see what you're trying to do. I mean, especially with IGCSEs and so on, and really in uni, like I could talk more like about both equally because I encountered the same exact situation. And in uni, I didn't really come out on top, but it was top 5. Like it was like out of several hundred people, it was good, right? But if we're talking about in school specifically, what materialized out of that was people will see that you're doing every past paper there is. That whenever they see you, you have a big binder that shows chemistry from 1990 until 2011, and it's yay big, and you're holding it with you, and you're constantly looking at it, and like people know. And I don't know if it's intrinsic in other human beings to maybe feel a little bit insecure about themselves when they see you trying to do better for your own self. And they wouldn't necessarily try to put you down like directly. Like they're not going to steal your books, or I mean, in some schools maybe, but they're not going to steal your books or hinder your progress in any way. What they will do is take away things from you in the power that they have. Social exclusion. Temptation, isolate you because they feel insecure about what they're not doing, and they'd like you to join them as well.
I would imagine the other students would start making fun and mocking you. And like, what you trying to do?
That came naturally even without it. That was always there. But it was one of those rare moments in life where the goal was so much bigger than the room that I was in. And I found that later too.
How did you tap into that?
I reveled in isolation because in uni I was an average, below average, or even you would say underperformer when I was studying here, surrounded by family and friends. But when I moved to study abroad, I suddenly became a top performer.
This is in Sydney?
Yes, because I was alone and I could focus. And
is it because you chose your environment?
I chose my environment and I built it very carefully. Even today, I think one of the things that I'm proud of myself for is being able to construct the emotional and physical rooms that I'm in at all times. My time is very precious to me, and it is allocated very specifically. Like, people who live with me, people who, work with me, they know that I'm very anal about the calendar, and I'm very specific about where things are going. And that came from that period of time where I was able to let go of everything momentarily by choice, and then just kind of tap into a room that was bigger than I was, an area that was bigger than I was. And the path was so clear. I just needed to do this to get there, and I really want to get there. That was it.
And you also mentioned to me about how one of your mental ceilings was broken, not by a big one, but rather a small one. That mental ceiling you mentioned to me had to do with owning your time, or feeling like you own your time rather than feeling, life owns you.
If you can allocate 30 minutes to an activity and then do that activity, you're going to feel so powerful.
Wow.
It's so simple, and it's so stupid. But like, if I decide that I'm going to read a book from 9 p.m. to 9:20, not even 9:30, and I accomplish that, the serotonin win that you're going to get out of that is insane. It is unmatched, and it's really, I mean, obviously you have to have the type of motivation and the type of drive that allows you to do that type of thing. But if you can get yourself in a room to perform the certain task that you set for yourself and just figure out a way to get it done, the reward at the end of it is worth the grueling pain of having to force yourself to do it.
I mean, I believe this is something that is the easiest way of increasing your life happiness level or satisfaction level, right? Without anything exterior, without increasing your income, without getting more benefits from outside, is actually, as you said, when you actually allocate, whether even 15 minutes or 30 minutes, and you actually execute it, because of the serotonin kick that you get out of it, compile that you do it, let's say, whether daily or throughout a month, your perspective, you're like, yo, my life is good, or at least it's better than what it was.
It's finding the smallest ways to gain fulfillment, really. And fulfillment comes from being able to do the things that you set out to do, being able to finish where you start. And let's say that your goal is to not finish a whole book, but to finish a chapter, right? Then you can start working on that, and then you can start to work on another chapter. And before too long, you're working on a whole author's, backlog. And all of a sudden, you've achieved something.
I got the same advice from a person who did, many ultra marathons. And he said, Hisham, I don't look at the 100K. I just look at the next 5K. And that's it. And you just do 5 by 5 by 5. And before you know it, you're at 40. And before you know it, you're at 60. And I would say it's the same thing. Don't look at the whole book from cover to cover, chapter, but rather look at the chapter and, dive in. All right. I'll finally get to ask the question of the show. From your perspective, what is the high performance mindset?
The high performance mindset is making a decision on what you would want to achieve in your life and actually having the push through to do it, regardless of whether that be family, whether that be friendship, whether that be work. You can only really have a high performance mindset when you can set a clear goal for yourself and that you can see the path in front of you and you just have the means to execute.
And when you say means, what do you mean?
Habitual habits, basic things like showing up on the days that you don't want to, showing up for yourself the same way that you show up for other people. If somebody else were to expect that from you, would you do it better than if you expect it from yourself? If you can find that thread between, am I doing this for other people or am I doing this for myself, and actually tear that thread and make it clear that I would want to do this for myself because I deserve it. That's the key.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here.
And looking forward to discuss the other episode that will come from Nothing Final.
Sure.
To those watching, if you want to find Marwan on his podcast, go to the channel No Quarter, and the name of his podcast is Nothing Final.
Thank you, Shab. Thanks for the shout out.
Thanks.